So let's jump in. He says, I want you to know. Now, whenever in other letters that Paul has written, he uses this phrase, I want you to know. It's because it's something very significant. Normally, it's a theological concept. In this book, it's I want you to know what's happened. So he says, I want you to know, brothers and sisters in Christ, that what has happened. What has happened? Well, okay, Paul, what has happened? He goes, it's a bit of a long story. Here's what's happened. First, I went down to Jerusalem and I preached the gospel, and the Pharisees, not a big fan of that, so they put me in prison. They were actually going to try and assassinate me, but ultimately I was able to stand before a judge and had this issue, and I appealed to my Roman citizenship. So eventually they sent me off to go to Caesar to be tried there. And as we were making our way, we were on a shipwreck. So we got shipwrecked onto an island, and a snake bit me while we were on this island. It's okay, I survived. And finally we got to Rome, and now I'm sitting in prison awaiting my trial with Caesar. Okay, all right. So that's what has happened. He says, so I want you to know what has happened to me has really served to what? To advance the gospel. That word advance the gospel. The word advance is a word, it's an army word. Not surprising because Philippi is a Roman colony filled with ex-Roman soldiers. It's an army word speaking about the pioneers. So pioneers go before an army, and what they do is they clear the land so the army can advance. So the pioneers come with axes, they come with saws to cut down forest out of the way so the army, its soldiers and all its battle can move forward. And he says, what has happened to me, you would expect that all this stuff has caused the gospel to slow, but instead what's happened is it's actually served to advance the gospel. It's actually served to advance the gospel. So that, all those things have happened so that it has become known. It's become known. That word there is when it's a dark room and a light gets switched on. It's been made manifest. It's been made obvious. You can see it. It's become seen now to two groups of people. Do you notice this? Group of people, one, the whole imperial guard, and two, all the rest. So you've got group one and group two. So group one, imperial guard, the Praetorium, these are the SAS soldiers of the day. These are the highest echelon of Roman soldiers. And he's saying, my imprisonment has been made manifest like a light turn on to this whole imperial guard of SAS soldiers. Why? Because every 6 hours, a new one gets chained to Paul. He's only about that far away, and Paul says, really great opportunity for evangelism, that is actually, because they can't get away. And I just keep telling them about Jesus. Now, most people in prison will tell you how they are innocent. Keeps talking about the innocent one, Jesus, who died for the guilty. And so all of a sudden the SAS soldiers are going, this guy's different. He's not talking about his innocence. He's talking about the innocent one, Jesus, who died on behalf of the guilty. So it's been made known to them that the upper echelon, and Philippi is a Roman colony filled with ex-Roman soldiers, are going, great, the upper echelon of the army is going to know about this, but not just them, all the rest, that my imprisonment is for Christ. And then, do you see group number 3? Most of the brothers. And then, notice this, most of the brothers, 1, have become confident in the Lord by my imprisonment, are much more bold, number 2, to speak the word without fear. 3 different ways of saying this imprisonment has made them bold, made them confident, bold, without fear, to speak the word of the gospel. Of those many brothers who have become bold, some preach Christ from envy and rivalry, but others from goodwill. So do you see what's happened here? Of the Christians, there's 2 types of Christians. Some preach Christ from envy and rivalry. What are those? Bad motives, messy motives, impure motives. But others from goodwill, good motives, right? And so then he goes on to discuss those 2 people. The latter, the group that do it for the right reasons, they do it out of love. knowing that I'm put here for the defense of the gospel. They preach Christ, not from messy motives, but pure motives out of love. The second group of people, the former, proclaim Christ out of selfish ambition, not sincerely. They're thinking to afflict me in my imprisonment. That word afflict is a very, very particular word picture. It's talking about friction on your arm from metal grating against it. Where's Paul? In prison, chained with irons to a person. He's saying, they're out there preaching, hoping that my chains grate against me and inflict me with more pain. What an incredible word to pick, right? They're out there preaching to try and make life tougher for me. So how do we respond to all this? How do we deal with all of this? He says, what then? Only that in every way, every and all really key words throughout this book, whether in pretense, that's group number 1, or truth, which is group number 2, what's happened here? Christ is proclaimed. That's what I care about. That's what I'm on about. That's what matters. Christ is proclaimed. And in that I will rejoice. I will rejoice. This is the one thing for Paul. This one response, rejoice, for Christ is being proclaimed.